Resolve podcast. I'm here with my guest, Sakina Ibrahim. Sakina, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sakina Ibrahim. I am an author, artist, and wellness advocate. My books are Big Words to Little Me, Advice to the Younger Self, which received an NAACP Image Award nomination. And my most recent book is titled To Begin, A Journey in Self-Love and Healing.
Wow. Awesome. So, Sakina, you and I connected because you contributed to my interview series with Authority Magazine and Thrive Global, Rising Through Resilience, How to Be More Resilient During Turbulent Times. And, I love the fact that you started the article with this idea of challenges and sort of this idea of overcoming. It's those two words are often overused. And when they're used, they're not as powerful because people assume that's what everyone needs to do. But I love the way that you sort of brought it home with your background. Can you just speak more to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, challenges and overcoming, I think, is so overused because it's part of life. And the sooner we can accept that it's part of the formula to life and how we build our strength, the more exhilarating of a life experience we can have, is what I can say. So I feel like my childhood background really introduced me to intense challenges at an early age. And so I had to have a lot of maturity. My family had experienced the results of gang violence. My father was incarcerated at a young age. My grandfather passed away really young. And so I saw the women in my family really develop this strong sense of faith and a strong sense of inner power and determination to overcome, all these bombs that were happening to them. And when you're a child, you don't have the language to express what's happening around you. You just see it, and it impacts you definitely emotionally. But not to say that the women in my family didn't hurt through their challenges and obstacles, but I saw them have a strong amount of faith and inner peace that they were going to get into it. And quick story, my grandmother was in town visiting me, and I said to her, she's in her older age, and I said, Grandma, you've been through so much. How did you get through it all? And she says, I never complained. And that is exactly what I needed to hear, because that's what I saw. She never complained. She kept her peace, and she said, I would just say, this too shall pass. And that is something, that I think is inherent in how I've dealt with my own life challenges. How I've been able to deal with them, just because it's how I was socialized and what I saw.
It's so amazing to me that you use that particular phrase from grandmother because I'm a cancer survivor, and when I got diagnosed, the doctors in the hospital even said to me, we've told hundreds of people this, and the way you reacted is just startling to us. And I said, because what am I supposed to do? Complaining about it is not going to solve the problem.
Exactly.
You just need to give me what you need to give me, and I need to just take it in and figure it out. So I just love that you spoke to that. And also, you mentioned the article about your uncle and how he was paralyzed, and how like that sort of cultivated this idea of compassion for you. Has compassion been something that you can easily sort of trigger, or you can easily sort of get to, or is it something that you feel sometimes, it's really hard for you to sort of find compassion, especially in our complex world that we live in today?
I think that compassion is one of the gifts that God gave me, honestly. I think when, God created Sakina Ibrahim, he said, I'm going to give her an extra dose of compassion. And knowing that I would need it, right? When you have someone in your family who's disabled or ill, and again, as a child, you're experiencing these different dynamics, there's so much innocence inside you where you're trying to understand what's going on, but all you know that this is a person that you love, and this is a person who was able-bodied and full of life and playing drums, and had picked me up from the bus stop as a kid one day, and then the next, we were in a hospital and he was in a coma for a very long time. And I grew up in and out of the hospitals visiting him. And then when he came home, he was blind and mute and paralyzed. And so there's this being, this human being, this person that you love so much that you have to give love and care to, and they can't give anything back. So that is this unconditional amount of love and compassion, because it's like, well, you're still here, right?
Mm.
You're still here. And you're a person that we all care for, that was still so full of life. So that is definitely something that comes easy to me. I don't understand the world we live in sometimes, and why it's so difficult for people to be compassionate and empathetic. Because I'm like, do you not see yourself in this situation? Do you not realize that that can be you tomorrow? Do you, or any minute now? No moment is guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed to any of us. Even a homeless person on the street, your life can change in the blink of an eye, and that could be you. I've seen it happen. So it is sometimes very frustrating to see the cold world we live in. But I do have hope, because I think the recent circumstances of the pandemic has really allowed people to center themselves on what's really important, and has taught everybody how fast life can change, and that it's important that we feel and have compassion and empathy for each other.
Yeah. I know also in the article you spoke about sort of auditioning for a beauty shop. Curious about how self-compassion works for yourself. Like in that moment, can you speak a lot about that experience?
Sure. Well, I feel like when it comes to big sort of career breaks that I've had as an artist, as a dancer and singer and actress, that you have to will yourself through doors. You not only um, through having the talent and ability and what you do when you get through the door, but a lot of times you have to just fight for opportunities. And in my performance career, there's times where the ball is dropped, right? Like, there's times where it's like anything that's supposed to go wrong in dress
Mm,
rehearsal, or
yeah.
anything that's supposed to go wrong before a show is gonna go wrong. Anybody in the arts knows this, especially people, folks on the production side. But I have found that you have to kind of take a moment and breathe and will yourself through the next thing, with this mentality of, okay, it has no choice but to work. And so even when I come up against different, obstacles, I just think about, what do I have to do to get to the other side of this. So in beauty shop, that was completely my perspective too. It was an all-star cast, Kim Whitley, Tiffany Haddish, the legendary Shelley Garrett, may he rest in peace. This is LA, so the talent is out the roof.
Yeah.
There's so much talent there. In this show, Beauty Shop had broken so many barriers for African Americans in theater when it was first written. And we all know there's a film also called Beauty Shop too. But when they decided to bring it to LA, there's not a lot of theater in LA. So to bring
Mm,
a historical, Black comedy show to the Wilshire E. Bell, the pressure was really high. And there was an all-star audience. Wendy Raquel and the OWN
mm,
network was recording it, and it was
wow.
a lot of pressure. But you have to just breathe, rely on your talent, art, and hard work that you put in, and trust it, and the rest is up to God.
Yeah. 100%. And I also loved in the article where you mentioned that you found throughout your life that the heart is really what matters the most. Because I teach head, heart, and gut, which, there's been case studies of the fact that those vibrate some level of consciousness, of awareness. I just love the fact that you honed in on the fact that people get stuck in their head so much, but they really need to listen to the heart. How has the heart led you to places that have served you well?
The heart has led me to all places that have served me well. A part of my life philosophy and teaching philosophy is also mind, body, soul, right? And because I'm a dancer, I have a very deep connection to the body. And I know when something's in alignment, and I know when something is not, because I can literally feel it. And, when you have a deep spiritual practice, you meditate, you pray, You read your word. I read the Bible, or you read your text, your ancient text of wisdom.
Mm.
And you develop a connection with God. There's something inside of you where you don't have to rely on your mind. The word tells us, lean not into your own understanding, right? Because the mind like fluctuates. It's like, I feel this way and I feel this way and I feel, it goes all these different directions. But your heart is the truth, right? Your truth relies in your heart and in your soul. And when I'm at a crossroads, and I've been at so many crossroads, when I'm at a crossroads, I feel like taking the time to pause and literally ask myself, what do I feel here? If it gets
Mm.
tight, if it gets constricted, if it starts beating really fast, I know that that is probably not the right direction to go. But if I have peace and I have ease and calm, then that's probably the direction to go. Not that I've always listened.
Well,
You learn that through time, like, oh, I mean, when it's beating fast, that's don't do that. Got it.
well, it also
You learn
reminds
with
me.
practice.
Also reminds me in the article too. You mentioned your mother always used to say, "Be a leader, don't be a follower." How has her words still impacted you today?
My mom is a very wise woman, and she had me at a young age, and she raised my brother and I to be able to think for ourselves, to be um, I feel like she raised us as young adults in some ways. It wasn't always do this, do that. It was what do you want to do, so that we could have the critical thinking skills, so that we could know the difference between right and wrong and know what it feels like when you do wrong, right?
Mm.
And just she's just such a wise woman, and she has all these sayings like, "What's that got to do with the price of tea in China?" You're like, what? She said a quote about a frog the other day, and I was like, I have no idea what this means. And so my brother and I can laugh at it, but the things that she has taught us, and the fun colloquialisms that she shared over the years as I grow and mature in my own womanness, makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. She has always, taught us to lead with faith, to trust God, and to trust ourselves, and she's always really just wanted the best for my brother and I. And when you grow up in an environment where that's the language, right? I want you to be the best. I want you to do your best. That's the expectation you have of yourself, inherently. So I'm really fortunate to have so much wisdom and guidance from my mom, and I talk to her about everything. Yeah. So if I'm dating you, my mom knows.
I love it. So, Sakina, how do you define the word resilience?
Mm. Resilience is the ability to never give up and stand undefeated.
Ooh,
Yeah, and I
wow.
have that tattooed here on my
Oh,
arm.
wow. Oh,
I
that's
don't know if you
awesome.
can see it.
Yeah, I could see a little bit. Yeah.
Undefeated. And that's a family mantra we have through the lens of my uncle's life, of fight to the end, and to the very end. Because you know what? I wish someone would have told us a long time ago that life wasn't easy. I feel like you like grow up and then you figure out like, oh, this thing isn't easy. You're either on your way into something or on your way out of something, one obstacle or another. But to build yourself up and to build, our children and young people up with a mentality of resilience really prepares them for life, because you can try to make it easy, but we're not orchestrating this thing, not all of it anyway.
Yeah. I like how you also mention in the piece about fear and pain and how you need to move forward. And if you do not move forward, if pain and fear can't stop you, nothing will. I was like, wow, that's such a great mantra to even say. Can you speak a little bit more of that?
Yeah, pain is a part of life, fear is a part of life, but also hope and happiness and freedom are on the other side of that. And there's nothing that you want to experience that won't have a little fear in front of it. You know, I feel like sometimes when we feel fear, that is the direction that we need to grow towards. Ooh, sorry, that just got me. I'm going through some things. I'm
That's
speaking
good.
to my own heart. When you feel the fear, that's the thing you need to grow towards, to get past the fear. Of course, never in the form of danger.
Yeah.
And, you know, pain, you have to build a tolerance. You have to build a tolerance for pain, for being able to accept it, being able to sit with it, being able to let it pass, which I'm sure you know and understand from what you've been through, is that it you have to allow it to pass. You can't avoid it. You know, it's part of our experience in allowing our souls to grow and to get the lessons that we need to get in life. And it's just a part of the wave. You know, you got to think of all of this as the ocean, and that there's these waves, there's these highs, there's these lows, and you're just riding the ocean. So when I'm in a low, I'm present with it. I'm like, oh, this means that I might have to just shut it all down and be present and feel my low and write about my low and pray about my low, and you know, ask, what is this trying to teach me so I can get through it. But there's nothing you can do to avoid it, you know. And we live in a society that wants to avoid all the pain. We want to drug it away. In my book, I talk about sex it away. You know, we want to shop it away, just like the Solange song.
Mhm.
We want to do all these things to avoid the pain. But what if we were to sit with it, grow from it, and never have to face it again, you know, and really move on?
Yeah. Well, this also reminds me of something you mentioned in there that part of resilience is letting go so that everything else could fall into place. It's like, whoa. It's like, wow. It's such an
It's a
easy thing to think about, but such a hard thing to do.
That part, yes. I was gonna say it's a practice, right? Like a lot of things that I'm sharing in the article are just, you know, they're things that I know from my life, but they're difficult to master. You literally have to practice with every circumstance, and you have to develop it within yourself. You know, letting go is difficult. You know, letting go of someone or something that you've lost, letting go, especially, hold on, letting go of something you really, really love, right? But knowing that if your spirit, if your gut is telling you to let go, there's a reason why, right? Your intuition doesn't lie, and there's something on the other side of letting go that's going, to make sense. And you're like, oh, okay, I understand that now. But there's so much joy and surrender. I mean, we could do it in our bodies, right? This is when we're holding on. That actually doesn't feel good, right? I feel constricted. I feel restrained. I feel tight, but when I let go, I open my arms, I surrender, everything can fall and I can receive it. You know, so that's how I think about it. That's how I hope your listeners will start to think of think of letting go too. It's just opening your arms, opening your heart, opening your mind, so everything can fall into place. Sometimes we have a plan. There's a saying, when you have a plan, God is laughing. That saying is there for a reason. You never know what's gonna happen tomorrow, you
Yep.
know?
100%. So, how do you see resilience and courage as one and the same or different?
Ooh, I think resilience and courage are actually different. I didn't know I was going to say that. Yeah, they're different. I think resilience, I think courage is required in order to be resilient. Yeah, so courage is the heart posture. Courage is the deep breath that you take before you execute, before you go to war, before you say what you need to say. That's something that comes from deep within you. Courage to do it anyway. The um, strength and the belief of what it is that you're fighting for, or that you desire and want. And that comes from within inside. But resilience is to not give up until you're there. Resilience is your endurance. Resilience is, your ability to just keep swimming, just keep swimming. That's the resilience. So they support each other, but I don't think they're the same.
I know you mentioned in the article about it was courageous when you wrote your book. I would love some more context on that.
So my book, To Begin a Journey in Self-Love and Healing, is a very introspective look at me, flaws and all. Um, in thinking about how the painful lessons of my life through relationships and through grief, through failure, through my dreams, how these different life experiences have guided me in my healing and in learning to love myself. Because we really love and want to be loved by everyone else without really doing the investigation of what it is, or doing the inner work, right, of loving ourselves. And I always say, I write about in the book, well, how can you expect someone to love you who doesn't love themselves, right? That's like going to a gas station, looking for groceries. You're going to find snacks, but you're not going to find what you really need there. It just doesn't exist. And so, writing this book, one, I had to be intimate, right? And reflect and, share intimate details about my upbringing, about my life. And it's literally the other day, I was like, why did I write that book? because because it's so raw. I talk about my decade-long relationship with a really incredible man, and he experienced an unfortunate skydiving accident. And I was there as his partner and his lover and his caregiver. And it was very reminiscent of my childhood, right? Very reminiscent of
Yeah.
caring for my uncle as a child. And here I am, a young adult, in a very, triggering too, and traumatic um, relationship. And there was so many beautiful things that I learned, again, about unconditional love and support, and, beauty, and making beauty out of life. And I always have so much compassion and understanding for those who have disabilities. It's part of my upbringing. It's part of who I am. And so, even digging into that, and sharing details of that relationship, and the courage it took to walk away, what I was going to do after, because after you've been with someone 10 years, like, who am
Yeah.
I? And so, going through it, I am grateful that I wrote the book, because getting through it is one thing, but consciously getting through it is another, right? So I was writing my way into my healing and into my freedom, through the guilt and the shame, and writing about things in the book that I hadn't even shared with my mom, right? And she calls me and she's like, "Hey, have you been through certain things that we never talked about?" And I'm like, and these moments are really raw. And I have to remember, this isn't a made up character. I'm talking about the life and journey of Sakina Ibrahim. And I didn't really think about what that meant while I was writing it. I just knew it was something necessary for me to do. And I knew that it was going to help set other women and people free in their own journey, and to accept that it's just a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I love the fact that you quote Audrey Hepburn and how she says nothing is impossible. The word itself means I'm possible. I
Yeah.
so love that. It was so good.
Yeah.
Is that a call to action for you? Is that something that's always sort of allowed you to push forward even though there's obstacles in your path?
Yeah, I quote Audrey Hepburn in my first book, Big Words to Little Mean, which really was written to help empower young people, right? To help empower the 12-year-old, And then there was women who were like, oh no, this helped me out. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay, it's intergenerational. Got it. And I thought I made it up. Well, I made up impossible, I'm possible. Then after some research, you see this fierce picture of Audrey and her pearls and her black, and she's like, and there's like the word itself says I'm possible. But I strongly stand by that. I think that everything is mind over matter.
Mm.
I think that there's no such thing, there's no such anything that you can put your mind to. If somebody else can do it, you can do it. It might take longer, the path might look a little different, but the sky really is the limit. It really just comes down to belief. And my life is a testament of that. I'm from this little town, Springfield, Massachusetts. And I often think, I remember being a little girl and saying, I wonder where you'll be at 15. I wonder where you'll be in
Mm.
life at 25. Like I used to sit and imagine those things. And I do the same thing now, right? Because the imagination is where you can, where you can start to manifest and a dream of the life that you want and the experiences that you want to have. And yeah, sky is the limit. There's nothing too hard for God. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I also love the fact that you speak with the rawness with, your past about being in an abusive relationship and sort of just moving past that with that shame and that stigma that's attached to it. It's often hard because I know I felt shame with cancer. It sounds strange to most people, but I felt shame. I felt that somehow
Mm-hmm.
I caused it. Somehow I wasn't smart enough to avoid it. Somehow people would look at me, with pity. So I love the fact that you sort of brought that home in the piece.
Yeah, I made a promise to myself as a teenager when I started seeing my cousins go through, toxic and domestically violent relationships, that it would never be me. I was like, it won't be me. Okay, I know exactly what to look for. I know who exactly, and if he does this, I'm gonna break up with him. And didn't, I was very calculated. I thought it could never be me. And that relationship taught me it can be anybody. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you write books about self-esteem. It doesn't matter if you have good self-esteem. It doesn't matter if you go to church or have a relationship with God or make money or don't make it does not matter. Because at the end of the day, there's something in you that has to heal. And I'm fortunate in the way that I had a family to support me and to help get me out of that relationship before it was too late. And I developed so much compassion and understanding of women that in the past I judged, right? I judged them. I was like, oh, she needs to work on herself. She doesn't love herself. How could she let him talk to her like that? How could and these are like people that I love, where I'm the one ready to go to war to fight their boyfriends, for disrespecting them. And when it was my time in the same circumstances, I was like, your head is spinning, like literally, you like your head is spinning. You can't really grasp, especially with gaslighting and all the
Yeah.
emotional abuse and mental abuse. You can't really quite grasp what's going on. And then sometimes there's people who have children, or who don't have the freedom to literally get up and go. I got up and got a flight and was gone, right? A lot of people don't have that freedom, right? A lot of people don't even feel like they have the choice. So, I don't wish domestic violence or any kind of violence on anyone. That's why compassion is so important. And also supporting and truly loving on, the people who are in relationships that are domestically violent. And again, I'm grateful that I was able to see it, experience it, and get out and do the introspective work and the healing, so that I'm not even attracted, to men, who have those tendencies, but men who are whole.
So Sakina,
Because
what are
truth
your
is, they're hurt too.
100%.
Hmm.
So what are your 5 steps that someone can take to become more resilient?
Okay, so step one is identifying what the challenges are. So you have to have a practice of reflection, right? It's a daily practice.
Mm,
Reflecting, and discovering that resilience is something that's already inside of you, right? That's something that's really important, as well as faith.
mm,
Having faith. I don't know where I would be without my faith in God, and without having the word to rely on, as a tool of empowerment and a source of strength. And also, meditation has really allowed me to be able to calm down inside, and to silence my thoughts, and to, again, imagine and envision the outcomes that I want to have. And that goes to my third tip, which is the mind, strengthen the mind, the mind, the mind. Because this is the captain of the ship, okay?
it is.
The captain of the ship. I have an uncle who always says, you drive the ship. Don't let the ship drive you.
Mm,
You be in control of your mind. Don't let your mind be in control of
oh,
you. The mind is a really sensitive place, the subconscious, and all of the information and things that we're just given so much information, but you have to be able to quiet the mind, so that you can see and think clearly. That's something that's really important, and meditation helps with that. Next is your wellness, right?
mm,
It's so important. Health is wealth. So if your body isn't well, if you aren't giving yourself the nutrients and the water and the movements or exercise and the sun, all of these things that you need, for your instrument, for your engine to run, right? It's like putting really whack gas in a luxury car.
oh,
You don't want to do that.
yeah.
The car is gonna give out. And it's hard enough dealing with illness and challenges that are going to happen because it's life anyway. So embracing a lifestyle of wellness really allows you to have a great quality of life. And that's what you want to focus on. How do I feel every day? I want to feel good. What are the things I have to do in order to do that?
Mm,
Yeah. And last is learning from others,
mm,
right? So being a sponge and taking in the lessons and the wisdom and experiences from others. So maybe you don't have to learn as maybe it won't take as long as it did for you to learn the lesson that someone that may have learned. And so, not being arrogant, and but just being a sponge, and taking life in the way you see it, and being a good listener. A lot of us have a lot to say, but we learn so much more by listening.
mm.
So those are my
Thank you.
my
That's
tips.
awesome. So I want to transition now into the portion where I call brainstorming. So there was a
Okay.
question I asked about creating a movement, and your answer was so simplistic but so powerful on love and compassion. I thought maybe we could figure out ways to maybe create that or have that be something that people honor more rather than honor maybe some of the things that give them a quick high.
Hmm. Yeah, a movement of love and compassion is really, I think, the core of what would help to alleviate a lot of that pain that we were talking about, that we experience. And really, you have to have love and compassion from within. You can't give something that you don't have. So, what are the things you have to forgive yourself of? Who are the people that you have to forgive? Um, why do you love you? That's a great way to start. Asking some questions. You'll be surprised if you just kind of sit with a pen and paper to do the work. What what thoughts come to you? I'm recognizing some people have come up in environments where they've never even been told I love you,
Yep.
right? They don't really have a true concept of what love is. And so love is the cure to all, man. And compassion is the path and how we get there. And if we can develop that for ourselves and within ourselves, then we can give it to others, and that would help for us not to have such a world with so much violence and poverty and pain. We would see our brother or our sister and we would help as compassion. We would come together to solve the issues and concerns of the world.
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me with those two words, with love and compassion, is really this idea of trying to figure out that life is much more than just what you see and what you do. It's an interplay of emotions, it's learning. I got caught up, especially in family
Mm,
dynamics, and I forgot, that they're people too. Like they're my family, but they're people. Just like a friend I have a problem with, they're people. I think people forget that sometimes. So I think love and compassion starts at the root base with family and seeing family as an extension of people. And I think
mm.
if people can have that type of understanding or thinking or consciousness of it, it makes the problems less daunting. That's just my thought.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that. I have been, practicing this. It's not that big of a dealness within myself. And that's really helping me get through some of the junk when things happen that piss me off, right? Because I'm human too. I'm human still, and I get caught in my head still, and I
Yeah.
still get fearful, and I make certain decisions. You have to recognize when you're in your human experience
Yeah.
and when you are in your conscious being experience. And just like say, okay, I'm tripping. Let me come into my conscious self. And it's a constant practice. It's like tennis.
Yep.
It's a constant journey. It really is. And just reminding ourselves, everybody has their own problems and their own soul growth to do at the end of the day. And most times, it really probably doesn't even have that much to do with you.
Yep. Well said. So, where can my audience listeners learn more about you?
Okay, audience listeners, so you can learn more about myself, my books, my services by visiting SakinaIbrahim.com, SakinaIbrahim, or you can visit me on Instagram, my favorite social media channel, Sakina, Sakina underscore world. I'm very active on there. I have a lot of fun chatting and sending memes to each other. So drop me some memes. And I'm also available on Twitter and Facebook at the same Sakina World.
Wonderful, Sakina. Well, this was fascinating. I truly enjoyed this conversation with you. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Sure.
for having me.
Sure.